Russia readies its Poseidon Doomsday weapon as the world stumbles to the brink of nuclear conflict. Michael Snyder reports, in a game of nuclear chicken, one of the potential outcomes is that everybody loses. We have reached a point where nuclear annihilation is just one mistake away, and that should deeply alarm all of us. But as I discussed in previous articles, most people don't seem to care. Instead, most people just seem to assume that our leaders have everything under control and that they know exactly what they're doing. Unfortunately, the truth is that they are completely nuts. They just decided to escalate the war in Ukraine again, and they're dragging us to the brink of nuclear conflict. Of course, once a nuclear war starts, the option of choosing new leaders will be gone. This week, it's being reported that the Russians have just completed the construction of the first batch of Poseidon Doomsday weapons. The first batch of Poseidon nuclear-capable underwater drones for the Project 09852 Special Purpose Nuclear-Powered Submarine Belgorod has been manufactured, a source close to the Russian military and defense industry told TASS news agency on Monday. The source says the first batch of Poseidon ammunition has been manufactured and will soon be delivered to Special Purpose Nuclear-Powered Submarine Belgorod. Up to this point, military experts were concerned about what Poseidon drones could potentially do someday if they were ever built and deployed, but now they are on the verge of being operational. When most people hear the word drone, they think of something very small, but these Poseidon drones are actually the largest torpedoes that have ever been created in the history of the world by a wide margin. In fact, we're being told that each one is more than 60 feet long. According to Russian sources and Western intelligence, it's enormous. It weighs more than 200,000 pounds and has a diameter of around 6 feet. Yes, that's 200,000 pounds, yes. And a length of more than 60 feet. Diameter 6 feet across, a length of 60 feet. It is so big that the Belgorod can only carry 6 of them. This would make it the largest torpedo ever developed and deployed by any country in the world. These giant drones have been designed to carry nuclear warheads, and they can quietly travel underwater for thousands of miles until they reach their destinations. If we have a nuclear war with Russia, the Russians will almost certainly use them against us. The following is a short excerpt from my book. He says, the Poseidon is actually a submersible drone. It can travel underwater for more than 5,000 miles, and once it arrives at the target, it can simply park there until it's given the command to detonate. So it travels more than 5,000 miles and then waits, parked, waiting for the order to detonate. In fact, he says, there could be Poseidons parked right off the U.S. coastlines right now, and we would never know it. It's been reported that some Russian officials have said that the Poseidon can be equipped with a 100 megaton weapon. If such a weapon was detonated underwater, it would create an absolutely massive radioactive tsunami that would go inland for many, many miles. Theoretically, the Russians could deploy Poseidons to all of our major coastal cities and detonate them all simultaneously. Theoretically. Just take a few moments and think about what that would mean. Such a weapon could destroy New York City in the blink of an eye. If such a conflict were to occur, it would mean the end of our civilization, of course, as we know it today. So you would think that leaders on both sides were looking for a peaceful solution to this crisis while it's still possible. But instead, both sides just continue to escalate matters. On Wednesday, it was being reported that the United States has decided to send 31 M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, and Germany will be chipping in with 14 Leopard 2 tanks. 45 tanks will certainly not turn the tide of war. In recent days, the Russians have advanced on several fronts, and at this point, they have captured the entire town of Soledar. Ukraine confirmed on Wednesday its troops had withdrawn from Soledar in eastern Ukraine, almost 2 weeks after Russian troops said they had captured the small salt mining town. In order to preserve the lives of service personnel, the defense force withdrew from Soledar military spokesman Sergei Cherevati was quoted as saying by state broadcaster Suspilne. Even if the Ukrainians can figure out how to properly use them, 45 new tanks will not stop the Russians from continuing to advance. But these new tanks will definitely make the Russians even angrier. Originally, Germany was not planning on sending any tanks, and now they have reversed course. Vladimir Solovyov is suggesting that military bases inside German territory, are legitimate targets. It's time to send a clear, resolute message that we now consider Germany as direct party to the conflict, rekindling memories of World War II, he said. German tanks appearing will definitely mean we consider German territory, military bases, and other sites as legitimate targets. So you can understand that this would mean that even Germany would be pulled into this conflict. Now, in Russia television personality Evgeny Satanovsky has just said that he believes that it's time to flatten the Bundestag. He said German tanks with crosses on their armor will again march across Ukraine, attacking Russian soldiers. I have a natural reaction to this. The Soviet Union bombed Berlin in 1941. And to me, this is a signal that the Reichstag or Bundestag, which now replaces the Reichstag, simply should not remain standing any longer. Flat, slightly radioactive, melted down ground will remain in its place, he said. Of course, many of the Western world are making highly responsible statements as well. For example, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock made headlines all over the globe when she publicly admitted that we are fighting a war against Russia, she said. What an incredibly foolish thing to say. How did someone like that get into such an important position in the first place? Of course, the same thing could be said about dozens of our most important officials in Washington. We currently have the worst collection of leaders in the history of the Western world, and they are telling us that there is no other option other than complete and total military victory in Ukraine. On the other side, the Russians truly believe that they are facing an existential struggle for the future of their society. To give you a better idea of what the Russians are really thinking, let me share with you an excerpt from a transcript of a speech that Vladimir Putin gave just a few months ago. Quote, in fact, they spit on the natural right of billions of people, most of humanity, to freedom and justice, to determine their own future on their own. Now they have completely moved to a radical denial of moral norms, religion, and family. Let's answer some very simple questions for ourselves. I now want to return to what I said. I want to address all of the citizens of the country, not only to those colleagues who are in the hall, to all the citizens of Russia. Do we want to have here in our country, in Russia, parent number 1, number 2, number 3, instead of a mom and dad? Have they gone mad out there? Do we really want perversions that lead to degradation and extinction to be imposed on children in our schools from the primary grades? To be drummed into them that there are various supposed genders besides men and women, and to be offered a sex change operation? Do we want all this for our country and our children? For us, all this is unacceptable. We have a different future, our own future. I repeat, the dictatorship of the Western elites is directed against all societies, including the peoples of the Western countries themselves. This is a challenge for everyone. Such a complete denial of man, the overthrow of faith and traditional values, the suppression of freedom acquiring the features of a reverse religion, the opposite of what religion is, outright Satanism. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus Christ, denouncing the false prophet, says, by their fruits you shall know them. And these poisonous fruits are already obvious to people, not only in our country, in all countries, including many people in the West itself. End quote. The Russians believe that they simply cannot afford to lose this war. Western leaders also believe that they simply cannot afford to lose this war. Both sides are armed with nuclear weapons. This is not going to end well. If you have not been thinking about where you would like to be located during a nuclear conflict, you might want to start looking up some maps. We are going closer to the unthinkable with each passing day, and at this point our leaders have no intention of changing course. It's finally here, Michael's new book entitled End Times, now available in paperback for Kindle on Amazon. About the author, my name is Michael Snyder. He says this is by Michael Snyder. And my brand new book entitled End Times is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books that are available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, Commissions Earned. When you purchase any of my books, you help to support the work that I'm doing. And one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short, and I need help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I have published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News. And the articles that I publish on those sites are republished on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include about the author section with each article. The material contained in this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely a great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. This is on End of the American Dream by Michael Snyder. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box